Hello, welcome to episode 30 of the Hybrid Ministries Tech Forum, where we discuss all matters relating to the challenges and opportunities of live streaming worship services and other events. Whether you're considering a one-way broadcast or an interactively engaging worship, what could be more important than your online congregants experience? While they may come for community, the message, the music, the quality of your presentation, and the level of engagement that you offer will determine how long your viewers will stay and how often they'll return. So if you're with us live, you are an important part of this show. Your questions and comments help to produce the show and steer the topics that we discuss. If you're with us live on YouTube or Facebook, get a portable device ready for a QR code that I'll put up in just a moment. There are several ways that you can engage with us and each other during the show and contribute to where we go. The first is by asking questions. Write them in Mukana, where you can also comment and chat with panelists and each other. There's a link in the Zoom chat tool, so go ahead and open it up now. And here is a QR code. No, not that one. Push the right button. There you go. There's a QR code that you can, for people who are not on Zoom, to get to Mukana. And this is where we ask our questions and take them during the show. So I'll give you another shot of that. Yeah. All right. So you can shoot this with your phone, and it'll open up Mukana in your window and put your questions in there. Okay. So the second way to engage is in our Discord. It's our full-time, topic-driven information resource and discussion platform. When you register for the Zoom show, you'll get an invitation to it. And if you find the show valuable, you'll really enjoy and appreciate the Discord. If you're with us live on Zoom, you can stick around here after the show is done, where we'll have an after show with open microphones and casual conversation. And if you'd like to participate on our panel, maybe you can offer a different perspective or experience, then just get here an hour early before the show starts and we'll check you in. And if you want to invite other people to the show, you can find all the registration information on our Facebook page and our Facebook group, where we also post about upcoming episodes. All right. And we are, one in a related set of communities that our panelists and I contribute to, dedicated to all flavors of worship and commercial media production. So if you're hungry to learn more, look for links in the Discord under related shows. And we have an audio training class that on most Mondays at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, where we work on skills for live mixing, listening, and editing. So look for announcements about that in the Discord under Monday training class. All right, so let's get to it then. Back in March, hard to believe, it's been like almost 8 months, right? We ran a contest to award free needs assessments to 3 congregations. After collecting a lot of information about the church, the congregation, the existing equipment, the sanctuary, the style of services, their goals and expectations for live streaming, our expert panel met privately to produce a set of upgrade recommendations. So this is something that consultants typically charge thousands of dollars for to do this service. First Unitarian Universalist of St. Louis was the winner in the larger category with over 200 seats. And we presented our findings to them in episode 15 on May 13th. So you can go back and look at that if you like. And we have Nixon Pendergrass here with us from First Unitarian. And we'll see, and the Reverend Kim Mason is here. Let's bring her in. All right.
Great.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here, Nixon and Kim. And give me one just second. I want to.
So if you call me Nick, that keeps politics out of it. And so
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you laughed about that. If you thought I was serious, we'd all be in trouble.
Well, that's great. Thank you for coming, Nick, and thank you for being here, Kim. Um, your perspectives are going to be, and your experience is really what we're looking for here. Um, I think it's great that we were really proud to be able to present that review to you. We really enjoyed doing it. We enjoyed looking at the information that you sent to us. A lot of information about the church, and it's a beautiful sanctuary. We saw lots of great pictures, and the information about the technology that you had. Um, and talked about where you could take this to really make offer your online congregation effective services. So that's great. So tell us a little bit about the journey that you've taken since then until now.
Can I?
I'll throw it to you, Nick, first.
Yeah. Well, um, first, let me praise your forum for giving us courage in the early phases by helping us understand what the issues were likely to be and talking about how people have actually succeeded with this. It's a little fearsome when you start. And the process of actually preparing all the material for you was of real value to take inventory on what we actually have and to start to dwell on, oh my gosh, that's a problem, and so's that. And within groups, as you know, there are not always agreements about what's important and what's not. And as somebody who's been around audio a very long time and made instruments to measure it, I fundamentally believed that audio was going to be the more difficult part. And you all reinforced that. And that helped in the group to make a point that we needed to worry about that more than we were. And in fact, it has proven to be so. So we're still working on audio issues, and but we're making great progress. And so you helped us a great deal, and we appreciate it.
Well, it was my pleasure. So, so what improvements have you? Let's take a look at some pictures, shall we?
That's a good way to focus it.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some pictures. So we have not that one. Ah, yes, this one. All right. So let's. All right. Can we take a good look at these, Leo? There you go. Thank you very much. All right. So here we have the front of your sanctuary. This is a beautiful space. And what style is this church originally? Was
German.
German. And it's good. There's a beautiful pipe organ there, and so I see you've added a couple of new loudspeakers. As I recall, you had a single speaker up in the rafters that really wasn't doing the job for you.
Two speakers up in the rafters, but it was a smear of sound, and so we disabled one, and that helped it some, but sending all that sound into the room, pointed down at the floor and the walls, it was very difficult to understand the spoken word. And these speakers, we just on a whim, after listening to some audio people talk about how you really wanted the sound to come from the front back toward the back and not start by bouncing off walls, we put these up and then marched some people through to listen to the two in an A/B test situation, and it was so obvious so quickly that this was superior. It is now so much easier to listen to people speak, and any recorded information also. It's enough to make you believe that audio is important.
And Kim, have you noticed a difference in the sound in the room?
It's hard for me to hear the sound in the room from the chancel. So that's not really something I can speak to, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's actually a good thing because too many people, too many rooms have the speakers so close to the stage area that sound from the loudspeakers gets into all the microphones, and that seems to be a problem for most. And you're fortunate not to have that problem. That's great. Okay, let's look at another picture.
This speaker arrangement also greatly reduced feedback issues. So when you get sound bouncing off of walls here and there, and you develop a feedback problem, people wouldn't know which way to move because they didn't know where the reflection was coming from.
Right.
So this is so much better.
That's great. So here's a nice, slightly different angle of the front of the room, the chancel and the organ. So
And
now you put up, go ahead.
I would say those speakers are not a long-term solution. They, when we installed our video system, our cameras, we realized that we needed to work on the audio at the same time, but didn't have the budget to do both. And so the speaker situation is until we have funding to handle the rest of the audio.
Yes.
Right, right. I understand that you tackled the video first, which is certainly understandable, and you're getting by with the audio that you have, and that your audio is in the planning stages for the next step. So when we actually look at some video a little bit later on, we'll be just looking at the video. And I'll just remind everybody who's watching that if you have any questions, you can start putting them into Mukana, and we will get to them in due course. All right, so now you have some PTZ cameras. Here's a picture of one of them. How many did you get?
2.
Oops. Where did that come from?
These and 1 box camera.
Okay.
And the PTZs are on the walls on the sides, identically located, but on each side, so that we can get different views of the stage from one side and then switch to the other to add interest.
Right. So you said, did I hear you say 2 PTZs and 1 non-PTZ camera?
1 box camera. We wanted to try to make sure that we could see the artistry of our organist in working with the organ. So we have located a very small Marshall camera on a tripod looking toward the organist, so that while they're playing, we can appreciate what's going on.
And we're seeing that now.
Yes.
Yeah. That's beautiful. All right. All right, so now we're seeing a picture of one of your tech desks with computer screens, a small analog audio mixer,
Yes.
and a few accessories there on the right side. Looks like a wireless receiver, maybe.
Yes. 2 wireless mic receivers on the far right. On the left, you can see the ATEM. Let's see, it's called a Television Studio Pro HD. And just below the screen, you can see the PTZ controller. It's a lumens controller. And then just to the right of that, as you said, the small mixer. There you go.
Now, do you get much use out of the lumens controller? Oops.
Yes, yes, we do, mostly because of presets.
Yep.
And there they are at work. So on the left is a volunteer. Because of the current workflow, it's not exactly right, but we're learning as we go. The volunteer is actually doing camera control because the technician Mo on the right has to devote a lot of energy to running video clips through OBS. And we're, as of today, we have a small computer that we're going to plug into directly into the ATEM as though it was a camera. And we can load video clips in that way. And so those two people will reverse in order at the table. Mo will be focused on the artistry of camera work and video clips. And the volunteer will try to make sure we're not doing something silly with audio and take care of other issues that always seem to come up. That's the idea. But we're partway into the process, learning as we go. Only a few emotional scars so far.
Oh, really? Well, it is a learning process because there's lots of new equipment and software and things to learn, right?
Yeah. One of the questions I was had on that, where you were talking about the fact that you're putting the ATEM in there, so everything's going through the ATEM, but you're also using OBS.
Well, our original thought was OBS would be the streaming software because it's free and it works very well with YouTube. Although we had an issue this week. Yeah. But the idea was OBS would really just be for streaming. And then the ATEM would be the video audio switcher. And all the focus of the live stream would be on the ATEM.
Yeah. But as you say, at the moment, you're putting the videos through there. So they're coming out. So typically what you refer to that is downstream. So if something's coming the other end of the ATEM, so towards it's downstream, like down a river. So you refer to it as downstream. But what you're talking about doing is moving your videos up so that they're at the same level as the ATEM, because the ATEM that you've got, the television studio, can take, off the top of my head, it's 8 or 12 inputs. So it's quite a big ATEM.
And we just got the little computer today to do that. So
yeah, to run play out.
Yeah, and it got us going to put the video clips into OBS because we didn't have the little computer because of budgets. But the workflow was kind of wrong. It made it difficult to keep track of everything. So by focusing on the ATEM, as you say, let's see, so that's upstream. Everything will happen in the ATEM. I'm not used to this terminology yet.
Typically they're called ATEMs. It's just like that. It's the same. It's just all as one word. It's I think because everybody else could for the same thing, Nick.
Yes, and so it's we believe it's going to work a lot better now with a focus on one set of video inputs, and you can transition then from one to another almost painlessly, and that's what the ATEMs do. Anyway, we're looking forward to that. Maybe this week.
Well, that's great. Yeah, the ATEMs are really flexible video switches. You can do a lot with them. Between the hardware switcher itself and the software that comes with it, we know people who don't really ever touch the ATEM panel itself. They run it through the software because there's so many more features that are available, and the buttons on the ATEM, a lot of the buttons are too small to be very convenient. And so they can run it from the software. And then there's additional software that you can use to add even more features to it. I mean, you can get really, really spiffy with it if, once you get accustomed and then you learn different things and move on, you can do some very impressive things to it. I just wanted to go back here for a moment to the camera controller.
Yep.
So we haven't really taken a close look at what camera controllers do, but this is a picture of the one you have, and this camera controller, the one controller controls all of your cameras, right?
Yes.
Right. And so any PTZ camera can be controlled by this. The joystick on the right can move it around, pan and tilt, can focus the camera, can control the iris and such. And you can select which camera you want to control, then you make your moves with it. You can control the pan and tilt speed, so you can make it really slow or speed it up, right? And then you can program presets. So tell us about the presets that you have here.
Well, there's a list there that Mo had for last week's service. So you can see his writing there. And Reverend Kim is really good at preparing a very detailed script. So in one of those images, you'll see a page from the script. Right. And then Mo's notes are tied to that script. And it says camera 1, preset 3, and that's just 4 button pushes, and camera is placed right on.
All right. So, Reverend Kim, tell us about your impressions and the impact, your impressions of all this technology and the impact it has had on your ministry and how you conduct services.
We're still figuring that out. We've only done 4 services, so the system is still brand new for us, and we our folks were really, really attached to Zoom, and we've been doing this double effort of streaming to YouTube and then sending the stream back through Zoom, which we are phasing out of, thank goodness. And will only be in YouTube, but it gives us a lot more space, right? Because we can use our actual sanctuary rather than just people's faces on the screen. And so folks have really appreciated being able to feel connected to our building and to people in space, in a specific space. But questions we're still kind of living into are how we want to do things like incorporate feedback from people who are attending virtually. How do we want to handle joys and concerns, things like that. And so there's a lot of questions that we haven't answered yet because we're still literally just troubleshooting. Yeah.
Well, right. So I would imagine that even in your first few services, your on-stage presence and the way you might address a room as an orator, as a minister, as someone who is presenting, right? Where you would be scanning the room and looking at the people in the room. Now you have to think about looking in a different direction, right? Looking at something else. And with multiple cameras in the room, do you have tally lights? Do you know which camera is actually looking at you at the moment?
We thought we did. So, so I will say that my energy being able to preach in the building as opposed to just talking to the camera on the front of my computer is really different. And so I appreciate having the ability to be in the sanctuary. And I'm trying to be conscious of speaking to the camera and to anybody who happens to be in the room. We thought we knew which camera was streaming an image at any given point, but it turned out that the light that I was told, there's a red light, look at the camera with the red light. And it turned out that was just which camera was actively being controlled by the controller, and not which one was kind of on and projecting, broadcasting an image. So
I suspect that when we have hopefully soon 20 or 40 or 60 people in the sanctuary, that Reverend Kim will direct her energy toward them, and that magic will get picked up by the cameras and whatever view that actually, I hope she doesn't spend too much time worrying about the cameras, but rather the people in the audience, because that's where she shines. And so I don't think we have to worry about the lights ultimately, but for now, with only 2 people in the audience, what do you do?
Right. Well, it's good practice to have, just the camp, be in the room and not have to worry about or have the time to think about that. I'm sure that reverends appreciate that sort of practice time or not really practice, because you are actually conducting a service, right? But
I am. It has really invited us to think about the image of our sanctuary and the messages that we're conveying with that image. We just had a worship committee meeting last night, and we spent a long time talking about, what's on our chancel, what is it communicating? Because folks realized that the image that came through on the cameras was really different than what you focus on when you're live in the sanctuary. And so, it's kind of, again, things are a little fluid right now. We expect our choir to move its position when they come back in the building, but they're not in the building yet. And so a lot of things are kind of still in movement, still in flux. So.
All right, we have a question from Graham Cardwell in Belfast, Northern Ireland, actually. He would like to know, which PTZ cameras did you get? And do you have any vibration problems? And which Marshall camera was it specifically?
I listed the lumens and the Marshall in the chat. So the lumens that we got the lumens VC-A61PB. So those are our PTZ cameras. The Marshall is the CV506. I don't know about vibration. Nick, is this something that you can speak to?
Well, we've not seen any vibration issues with the cameras. That would show up in the video, especially on a zoom shot where you're zooming in close up on somebody's face. We've not seen any vibration. And so far, we've not noticed noise from the cameras when they're changing position. That was sort of a concern at the beginning. If you're trying to have a very religious experience with meditation and quiet, to have cameras going bzz, 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 and people's eyes going up toward them. We've not seen any evidence of that so far. So these cameras are working out really well for us. I use a threat with Reverend Kim every now and then. If she's not really nice to me, we'll zoom in the cameras on her eyebrow. And
I think the question, just to clarify what Graham was saying, is that sometimes it's did the cameras pick up vibration when there's a lot of people in the room, which maybe you won't know until you've had the people in.
Yet.
And it is you'll find it when there's a lot that sometimes it's the mountings will actually vibrate. So we'll see. As you say, you don't know about these things until you've got 150 people standing up, sitting down, singing.
Well, we're going to watch for that now, and see what we see. But Marty, if you go to that image of the PTZ mounted on the wall,
okay,
boy, that that is as solid amount as I can imagine, because it's right at where the beam hits the wall.
And so I'm going to answer, there's another question in the chat about were there any issues about installing tech in an older building? And so I actually think that this image is a good one as part of this question. We basically hid the cameras because there definitely was a concern that any tech would ruin the aesthetics of the building. Even, you also saw where the tech room is. It's essentially an old bathroom. Well, it's not even essentially, it was an old bathroom that is just off the sanctuary. And so the placement as far as a tech deck is not ideal. But people really, when we talked about, maybe we could put the tech deck in the back of the sanctuary, it was just a complete non-starter. And so the tech is about as invisible as we could make it.
In fact, that brings up a point, if you don't mind. When we started into the process, we managed to find a pretty good audio-video person in Tom Petrie of Mad Dog Pictures, who came in, and he had just gone through this process with another church not very far away. And as we walked around and looked at things, he said, your biggest single expense is going to be doing the installation in a way that you want to in this old building. And he was not wrong.
It's literally the most expensive part of what we did.
Yes, indeed. And it was worth every bit, because you can't find these wires. And
I always say to people, the one expense that you've got to realize, and there's no way around it, is to run the cables. And to run the cables in, and when you go and do it, do not put one cable to one camera. Put in a minimum of 2, and ideally put in 4 cables to each point, because you may put in one camera there now, and then you may decide, do you want to put in another camera later? It's digging that hole and pulling up all those pieces of wood or whatever. That's your cost. And the cable is cheap. The physical box of cable is cheap.
He told us that back in May, and we took it apart. And so just about every cable that's pulled in there are at least 2 that went with it, and
exactly,
and an Ethernet cable too.
Yeah. So are you running the cameras? Are you running, so that we can understand, the cameras? Are you running them on? Because the ATEM you've got is all SDI. So is everything cabled by SDI? And then how are you controlling the cameras? You're running Ethernet to the cameras to control them. Yeah.
Yes, and PoE. Power.
Yeah, the PoE power over Ethernet is, so you're powering them and controlling the camera by the Ethernet cable, and you've got an SDI cable for getting the signal out through. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, largely from listening to you all. So you realize we could blame you.
No, I mean, it's the one thing, as I say, that you because ultimately in 6 months, 6 years, whatever, you can replace that camera, but very rarely will you need to replace the coax or the Ethernet cables. They're in for good.
And we ran additional cabling beyond what we immediately needed as well.
So you've got the angle that we can see here, just so people can understand. So that's one angle up on the top. So we're looking at it, that's going to be stage right, as I would look at it. So as you're looking out from the chancel, it's up on the right, I'm taking from that picture.
And then there's one exactly mirroring it on the left.
Okay. So those are the 2. And then you've got that third camera that you said that's looking at the organ. It's an interesting thing. And I'd love to come back and look at this in 6 months' time. I'm almost going to guarantee you're going to move the 2 cameras next to each other.
Well, next to each other.
Yeah, because you end up with the same view, but you have 2 angles that you can control. So you, as the reverend, know where to look. And because although the views are very different, you may add a third camera next to one that's there, and you'll use that as your primary point with two cameras, and the other one is as an alternative. Because sometimes you find that you just need a single point of focus, but you need two cameras to get two different visions from that single point of focus, if that makes sense. But who knows?
Well, let's take a look, shall we?
Yeah.
We'll take a look at your latest.
Oh, it's got audio issues.
No, we're not going to be listening to audio. It's just video.
Okay.
You remember that thing about emotional scars I mentioned? Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll be kind. So we're going to take a look at some video. So yeah, so what Leo was referring to is that it's always good to have a center camera that's shooting right down the middle aisle, so it's really head on. Because you can see here that we're kind of looking to the side, so that the lady who's standing at the pulpit, who is looking at the congregation, is looking off to camera right. So having a head-on camera would be a really good thing, and then having the cameras on the sides are nice so that you can get those alternate views to keep things interesting. Let's move on to...
Our technician almost said that he wanted a camera right now. And
We've lost the audio from somebody. I don't know if Marty, the audio is coming through on something.
Yeah,
so we can't
who's got
hear.
their mics open?
It's the same.
It's Reverend Kim.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. Do you have
Okay.
a fan or something going?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
as I was saying, the technician agrees with you. Almost immediately, he wanted a better camera looking straight down. And part of the reason for that was he wanted, if things started to go astray and he kind of lost track of which camera was doing what, he could push that button and have the straight down the aisle camera have the chancel up there, so there was always a view that worked.
Mm-hmm.
So in broadcast terms, what you normally term that as, that's your safe view. So
Yep.
you have you almost have one button that if you hit that button, I'm going to have a safety shot that's going to give me enough to get me out of trouble. That is going to show something that is going to cover the action, but not necessarily cover the individual information. So it's a great sort of like, something goes off and somebody walks in front of a camera, you've got a safety view. So that's it.
Yep. That's what he wants.
Yeah. So I have okay. Sorry. Keep going.
All right, so we'll see another shot of the your organ player a little bit later. We have, and I'm just trying to go ahead of any transitions from shot to shot so we can see what your transitions look like. Nice fade to black, and then coming up on slides. So this is for him. So nice transition.
Yeah, he was doing that transition in OBS as opposed to the ATEM.
Okay, good. Yeah, because the slides are coming from OBS or from software that's going into OBS.
Yes.
Right. So OBS is acting like a downstream keyer to the ATEM.
Yes, and you all are helping me with the upstream, downstream words. That's good.
Yeah. Well, upstream is what comes first, and then downstream comes after that.
Oh, it makes sense, doesn't it? It's all going that way. Okay.
It's all going that way, yeah. And this would be the lighting chalice, the chalice lighting coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have I'm not going to do that. just a moment, we have one transition and then another one coming up.
That's it.
And this looks like story time.
Right.
All right. Let's move ahead.
I really appreciate your doing this part of the show, Marty, because of my computer crash. I could not prepare this in advance to be really, really smooth and brilliant, but you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks. We're just scanning through the YouTube that you have already posted, which is really great. This is an amazing resource that we have, that we can go back and look at all of the things we did, all of the media that we've created, all of the content, all the services. It's really nice. All right. So this is a service that Reverend Kim, you were not officiating at. We could look at another one, but I think there were a couple of things that I particularly wanted to look at here. So you haven't tried to do any kind of music performance other than organ yet, right?
That's true. Soon, we hope.
All right. Is there a service that you can recall that you would particularly like us to look at?
Let's see. Well, I remember the second one down in the list. That was Margaret working as a volunteer doing transitions. And as that service went on, you could tell that she was becoming more comfortable with switching cameras and playing views. Initially, it's kind of deer in the headlights. I don't want to touch anything. But then you could see that she was catching hold. And I'm not sure that there's anything in particular in there, but you can, if you were to actually see the whole service, you would note that there were more transitions occurring late. And they're very nice transitions. She did a good job.
Yeah. Very nice, very nice. Anybody on the panel have any questions, or anybody out in the audience have any questions? Put them into Makana.
We do actually have.
Go ahead.
Sorry. We do actually have a couple of questions right now. First up, from Leo. Actually, yeah, here we go. From Leo, it said, when you change camera angle in camera, is this done by one person, or how are they coordinating that?
It's one person. So it's the classic push a button, put it up on preview, and then push transition, and it switches.
So you're doing all that in OBS?
Yeah. Well, no, this is all being done on the ATEM.
Okay.
But are they selecting the camera angles on the ATEM, or are they selecting the camera angles on the camera switcher first?
Okay.
On the camera control.
On the camera control, so they'll put something up on preview, and then go one cam and push preset, or just move it around.
Okay.
Transition.
Okay. One of the things you may want to look at is have you got a Stream Deck yet?
No.
Okay, because that'll put the two together. So you can actually press one button on the Stream Deck and it will actually do the camera move, and it'll flip the ATEM over to the camera at the same time with one button.
You have introduced me to a new toy, and that I'm going to look into that, because
I promise you, it'll change your world.
It will.
It looks like this. It looks like that's a Stream Deck, and you press one button, and it will move the camera to the position, and then it will take that camera, as it's called. So you say, so if you've got, say, camera 1 and camera 2, and you're on camera 1, so you say camera 2, I want close in on the chancel. So you press that button, which will say it will move camera 2 to the close in, and then it will take it 4 seconds later, so you don't ever see the move. And then you'll say at the same time, camera 1 now go back to a super wide, and then it will take camera 1 back to the super wide. So that when you take camera 1 again, you're back to the super wide. So they're just pressing one thing, and it just takes the whole complexity away.
Paid for,
but
all,
it takes
all my time to come to this meeting. That is a great recommendation. The one who's going to love that is our technician.
Yes, because that's it. But it's sort of like, if you think about it, if you've ever done software like Word, or it's like writing a macro that does 5 things that you want to do at once. But the reality is, Nick, you can't do it until you've done it a few times, so you know what the macro you want to write.
Right.
So, and then when it goes wrong, you know how to rewrite it. So you have to have the sort of the experience of doing it a few times before you can work it out.
Oh, great. Well, I did find out very quickly that if I didn't get the presets right, I could push a button and suddenly the camera would give me a close-up view of the opposite wall.
Right.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah. There is on some of these cameras, there's a bug on some models of some makes where one of those presets, whatever you do, the one preset's like number 6 never does what you think it's supposed to do. I'm not sure it's on this ones, but I've seen it on different makes about all the time. And you so you start off wide, this, and this, you get to the 6th one, and then it all works in all the settings. And then when you go to press it, that one just seems to zoom off into the space that you didn't expect.
That's why you need that safe camera back there, right?
Yeah.
Got a lot of trouble and some time out. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, Stream Deck will. Leo's right. Stream Deck will change your life.
Yeah, and then you'll buy one for the house, and then it gets out of control. Okay,
right, next question.
Thank you very much. Next up, we actually have from Marty. He was asking, are your video tech volunteers comfortable only seeing the sanctuary through the camera lens? Since they're in a separate room and they're kind of segregated from your main area.
Yeah, well, he doesn't get to see what else is going on. He's seeing it in a little vision of what's there now. And he doesn't see anything else other than maybe because of the ATEM multi-screen, if we had that big wide camera in back, that would help him, wouldn't it? Because he would see the whole chancel, no matter what's going on with the other cameras. And so far he seems comfortable, but that's a good question. I'd have to ask him.
Just out of curiosity, kind of dovetailing onto that with regard to the space, I don't know where this room is. Are there any plans to kind of maybe punch through and give them a window or at least something like that, or create a separate space for tech? Just out of curiosity. I don't know. I don't know if that's one of those architectural, whether or not it's even viable within your space.
I don't know.
Yeah, to punch through a hole there wouldn't really help their view. They are right next to the back of the chancel. So if you looked at the chancel and you saw the organ on one side, they are essentially on the other side of the wall that's opposite from the organ.
Yeah, that wouldn't do any good at all. I was wondering if they were like in the back of the room, because I know a lot of there'll be a bathroom in the back of the room that gets repurposed.
Yeah.
So.
We thought we went back and forth on putting them in. We have this receiving room off of the sanctuary, and we thought for a while about putting them back there, but it's very much like it's this very formal, like this building was built in 1917 and this is the same antique furniture room.
Ooh, yeah.
And so I was like, no, and some people, take pride in that room. And I was like, they're not going to like it back there.
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand that.
The balance of getting technology in and making it useful, but then making it almost transparent has been a real burden over. It's not a burden so much as it's just we have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, it's like when you said about the speakers, and
Yeah.
Kim, you said that they're temporary. They are, but once they're to the side or they may be something slightly different, they may not, they'll be there. You walk in and you see them because they're big. And then a few weeks later, they're gone. Your eyes, you lose them because they become part of the fabric. But the minute you put anything new in, it's like when you've got I always think about it, it's like when you get the tiniest thing stuck between your teeth, it feels like it's an enormous thing, isn't it? And you're like, well, it's enormous. And it's like, it's the tiniest seed. But when you put in speakers, but I think you're absolutely, you've nailed it earlier when you said, Nick, about that location of those speakers there has just, it's on the right plane and it's not bouncing. They're coming to you where you're expecting the sound to come from. I think that's also quite key, is when you're looking at somebody and the sound comes from roughly where they're coming from rather than above. It's sort of, your mind sort of equalizes it out a bit better.
Yeah, and what you're talking about, I think, is a kind of evolution of sensibilities and thought. That now that people have gotten used to Zoom, they've become a bit more appreciative of what technology can bring to them. And a microphone placed on stage, I think, will become just part of what makes all this work. And but those speakers up in the rafters, it became clear to me pretty quickly that they were in the rafters in order to hide them.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one, Nick, don't tell Kim this. Eventually she's going to be wearing a headphone mic, a headset, one of these. Have we got anybody on the panel with one? I don't think we have. She's going to be wearing.
I think I'm the closest, but a lavalier.
I usually preach with one of those because
one of
I
these
move a lot. Yeah,
with one of these. It's the number of clergy that when you mention that they're going to be wearing the sort of the Madonna mic, they're like, no, I'm not going to be wearing that, and it's literally,
I'm already that minister.
They're already, it's just tick, 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 because you're self-conscious when you see it the first time, but then the quality of the sound and the pickup of it, and the ability that you turn around and you face something else, or you face somewhere else, and the sound stays consistent, just makes such a difference. And it makes your sound person fall in love again, because they're not having to lift you up and down as you zoom around, as Crystal will tell you.
Yeah, and I would actually throw in one other thing. If there's anybody who's ever resisting one of those microphones, because I've done these with theater, you can actually put them into the hair and then little bit of spirit gum, tack them down and keep them under the hairline. So you're not getting it in your face. You just need to be really careful about the movement of the hair against the microphone.
What I will tell you is that I did it the first Sunday we were in the sanctuary with the system, and the real hassle was taking my mask on and off with that thing.
Yes, I can see that.
Yep, I've seen some people hide the microphones in their glasses, so they'll put the microphone right here, right? So that way it doesn't get in the way of your mask. Actually, Penn Jillette does that when they do live shows. So the reason that I asked about right? You know that, Jay?
Yeah, no, I introduced him to putting the mic on the glasses.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, yeah, it was our Trump Plaza Theater in Atlantic City a long time ago.
All right.
You're just awesome, Jack.
It's just where I was at the time.
It's still awesome now.
Well, Reverend really has to have a mic that's right near her mouth because she dances around the stage and does creative things, not tacked down to the lectern. So,
Oh, you're a dancing minister, are you?
I don't dance. I swear I don't dance. But I do move around.
I was about to say, I want to watch those services.
Yeah. Okay, but getting back to my question, the reason I asked about your text is that, you know, when you look at a professional television studio control room, you see like dozens of monitors because there are actually dozens of cameras, and when you have that many cameras looking all around the room, you can see every place in the room through, you know, all these variety of cameras. But when you only have two, you know, or in your case there's three, but one of them is only on the organist, it makes it much harder to feel confident that you're seeing enough of the room to know what's going on where and where the camera should be located, which is why we often think about locating that desk in the back of the room, right? Because then you can see it. Or as Crystal was saying, if there's a room that's convenient where you can create a window into the room.
Right.
So that was just, you know, sometimes that's possible, sometimes it's not possible. When you put up a third camera in the back of the room, that will certainly help. Some people will put up a lower quality camera, like a surveillance quality camera. That's just a wide shot. It never to be used on the air, just to a dedicated monitor in the tech room so that they can see the entire room or the entire chancel with one view. It might help. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good idea. And I really like the idea of using technology for everything it's worth. If we want the technology to be transparent as far as the sanctuary is concerned, then we can use other pieces of technology. I like the surveillance camera idea because it's inexpensive. And we've freed up some really good Wi-Fi equipment. So it can be running on Wi-Fi. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we don't have to run cables through this 100-year-old sanctuary.
Right.
Whenever somebody talks about putting all the cables and things in back,
Yeah.
I get crazy because that's another massive install cost to get the wires back there.
Yeah, I talked about it. I talked about putting it up right above I think it was, if I remember rightly, at the back there was the big air circulation, and we put people up there. Put people up there. You could see them falling asleep while watching from the back. But the thing with it, I would actually go with how Marty was saying. Rather than the more use you can use of the thing, as you were saying, Nick, of the cameras, making the most use. If you're going to put up a camera, I personally would put up or use something that you can use in the broadcast. You may not use it that often, but the opportunity to be able to switch to it gives you that flexibility. When if it's a CCTV style one, you can't necessarily switch to it because people won't be happy. The big thing, there are different ways of doing those. There are fixed cameras with fixed different types of the ones. One thing to be aware of for your color balancing, it is easier if you've got the same make of camera, so that the color, so they look similar. It's not to say that you can't. You can swap and change, and you can use what you have. But if you're going to buy something, you want to try and stay within the range, because it gives you've got more likely to be able to color balance them, because the settings and the configuration and the way they treat the things should stay similar.
Color balance is an interesting set of things we're learning about. So I got one of these things that looks gray with a little target in the middle, and I put it out on the stage, and I was looking at it, and on our cameras it looks blue.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have
18% gray cards. Yep.
Yeah.
You focus. I gather you focus in tightly on it, get it in there with the iris set properly, and do a one button white balance.
One button white balance. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll come out great. That'd be really great.
Well, one button white balance on should you aim at a white target, not at a grey target.
Right.
You can't aim that at a grey target and do a one button.
Right.
All right. Well,
that may be the issue. But that's it's good to. So
Gray cards.
Grey cards are first anyway.
It's more for light metering and photography.
Yeah, and what you actually can do, which really I'm not going to go very deep, but in your ATEM, you can actually take you can switch between two pictures. So you know how you've got the thing that's the bar in it's called a T bar that you can move backwards and forwards, and you can actually take two pictures. So you take the two cameras on and you aim them exactly the same shot, and then you do a diagonal swipe. So if you imagine there's a line like I've got there across me, and then you can bring the two pictures on there, and then you can match to see if that if they're both looking at the same piece of card, if the two colors of the two cards where the line meets in the middle of the angle. I can't draw very well, but there, I think you've got the idea. Look, matches.
Can you come to St. Louis sometime soon?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, Crystal's been trying to convince me to fly out anyway, so that's another matter.
Oh, just me. Like David had nothing to do with that.
No, that's it. But it's a great. The thing is with all of this, Nick, and you mentioned it earlier, and you're 4 services in. You're going to be very soon. You're going to be 40 services in. And then you're going to be wherever you're going, and in a year you're going to be 100 and something services in, and you're going to look back at this and hear this conversation, and you're going to say, "Oh, we did that ages ago," but you can't do any of it until you've done the first ones.
Yeah,
and that's where you are, and Kim, you were saying, "Oh, you don't want to see that YouTube video." Yeah, it's the beginning. It's the beginning.
Be kind.
And that's it. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. And it will get better and better. But if you don't do the beginning ones, you can't do, you have to start somewhere.
Yep.
We've been trying to explain that to the congregation.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Exactly.
Well, so speaking of the congregation, I was just going to ask this question. Thank you for bringing it up. How has the congregation reacted to these now 4 webcasts where you're actually broadcasting live from the sanctuary, being able to see, the sanctuary and you in it and the pulpit and all, and are they reacting well to this? Are they, excited about seeing it? And how do you think that they might react once you can bring people back into the room and they, see all these bits of technology around?
The first Sunday that we were in the sanctuary, there were so many comments about how excited people were to see the actual sanctuary. And so people were really receptive to that. Since then, we've had some little tech issues each week, and people have been very impatient with them. And we hear about it in coffee hour. And so, the last time I was in the pulpit, I actually wrote this little announcement that was like, this has taken so many volunteers and staff time, so let's show them some appreciation. And reminding them, right? Like at that time, we'd only done 3, and I was like, this is only the 3rd time we've done this. And so we'll continue to remind them.
I think there's a really good seat for them to sit in. Right in front of the ATEM, and they can sit there and do the next server. That's the place. I think I can see Michael at the top there. This is I know.
We did actually get somebody to sign up after that. That was like, I complained last week. I guess I should volunteer.
Oh, how nice!
This is a well used story. With Marty, Jay and Marty will tell you as sound guys. Everybody will love to rush up to the sound booth afterwards and tell you that, you got feedback about, for about 1.5 seconds through. And, they love to tell you on all the bits you get wrong. And they never come up and tell you when you get it right. That's not strictly true, but it sometimes feels like it.
That volunteer was there this morning.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah, and she gave us some really good feedback. But then as she got into it, the tone.
The good kind of feedback?
What's that?
The good kind of feedback.
Well, yeah, it's good in that, you know, that audio glitch at the end of that last service was terrible. Well, that's feedback. You need to hear that people care about that. And by the way, that brings up that there is a known bug in OBS that can do a hatchet job on your audio stream. It did it to us about halfway through that last service.
Yeah, you said something about OBS caused you a problem. Can you just explain? Because, you know, hearing about other people's problems or things that they come across always helps for anybody.
I don't properly understand it. The first clue that I got about it was an email from Reverend Kim to someone who was volunteering a consultant to help us. And she pointed out that there was a bug in there. And then I went and looked at the service, and sure enough, what it did was it was dropping streams of packets on the audio side. And
to folks who were so everything in the building was fine, and so no one in the building, and everything coming through the audio was fine, and so nobody on our end knew there was a problem. But when it got to YouTube, it sounded like a really crackly microphone.
I wonder if Marty or Jay has got some ideas of what it is. Before I'm going to say it's going to be audio. I'm going to say it's going to be 48 versus 44.
You were thinking,
Yep.
what the clock. It's
well,
clock
okay, so
rate.
I'll ask, where in the audio chain are people listening to the audio? I mean, the technicians. Where are you listening to audio from?
listening to it on the ATEM.
On the ATEM.
Yeah, so they're listening. I don't know where they're listening when they've got a video clip, because as I said, the video clips were going through OBS, but the video clips did not have the problem.
So it was live microphone audio.
Live microphone audio coming through from the ATEM to an iMac as a webcam, audio and video as a webcam going into OBS. And that's where the problem developed. But we didn't have
So,
any.
so ATEM to the iMac, and from the iMac to OBS.
Well, OBS is in the iMac, right?
I'm sorry.
Right. And so they did not hear any crackling in the headphones.
But you're listening ahead of the Mac,
Right.
So if there was if there was any issue,
It's upstream of OBS.
it was upstream,
you would hear it.
You really need to listen at the Mac.
Downstream.
Yeah, right. So in hindsight, we need to be monitoring the stream when it's in the iMac.
Yes.
Right. And
Or
enough.
So what I do, I did an event last night, and what I do is I actually completely separately monitor on my iPhone the event, so I'm listening to the YouTube channel or wherever it is, and I just listen to it on a separate thing, and it's obviously it's going to be delayed, etc., but I don't care. I'm just like listening every now and again. I'll just tune in and listen to what the world is hearing.
Yeah, that's the best idea, because then you're seeing the finished product.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Just so I think there's a bit that I didn't quite understand. Can you just explain how you get how is the ATEM connected to? So it's an iMac that's running OBS. How's it connected? How's the video coming into there?
SDI coming out of the program output of the ATEM.
Yeah.
It goes to an SDI to HDMI converter made by Blackmagic Industries, and that HDMI is going into, it's not HDMI, I'm sorry. It's USB-C going straight into the iMac, and the iMac picks it up as though it was a webcam.
Okay, so it's
virtual cam.
it's a little it's a television. Okay, so that's called so it's a mini encoder. It's a box that's about this big,
Right.
and it's got SDI on one side and it's got USB-C on the other.
Coming out the other. Right.
Yeah, because the television studio doesn't have an encode, doesn't have that feature built in.
So
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. That's great.
The ATEM is, I would assume, is then you've got audio embedded in the SDI, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So we do the audio follows.
So you're doing the conversion with the Blackmagic device.
Right.
Okay.
You got it.
How are you getting the audio into the switcher?
Okay, it's coming from a mixer. So all of the microphones and everything end up going through the mixer, and there are 2 outputs from the mixer currently. But after a conversation with you, I'm longing for multiple features in a mixer. But this is an older mixer, analog. We have a control room output, which is going to the ATEM. And we have the main output, which is driving speakers, self-powered speakers that you've seen in the images before.
Right. How is it getting into the ATEM?
It's going in to the ATEM as the main output on the Mackie left and right, going into the ATEM left and right.
Okay, so you're going into the audio inputs on the ATEM.
Okay.
So here's a suggestion.
Okay.
So sending audio. So when you have multiple sources going through a video switcher, and each of those sources has a different audio associated with it, having all of those audio / video inputs going through the switcher is nice, because when you make a switch, the audio changes with the video.
Right.
That doesn't really apply here,
No, it doesn't.
because all of the audio is the same. So think about this. You may not need to send audio into the switcher at all. You can take audio from your mixer, send it right into your iMac. And it, let's see. And so, in the
I'm going to
iMac,
contradict you after this. Go on.
all right, you can. You
Keep going.
can.
Keep going. I'm going to contradict you.
Now so you're not going through to Zoom. You're going to YouTube, right?
Well,
Right, okay,
it's going to both. The live stream is going to both.
it's going to both. Okay.
Although I think it goes to YouTube and then they're picking it up to Zoom on a share screen.
Oh, not the other way around?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Zoom is further downstream.
So you can
Our
actually,
technician didn't know how to send our output to Zoom, but knew how to send it to YouTube.
Okay.
all right. So where I'm going with that is eliminate as many unnecessary points of failure in the signal chain as possible, right? So as far as audio goes, the switcher isn't really adding anything for you. It isn't adding any quality or feature that is useful to you, because it's just one audio stream from the mixer, right? Except when you get to video playback, but that's downstream. That's happening entirely in the iMac. So sending the audio right to the iMac and into OBS, and then from OBS to your stream, right, is a bit more direct. Now, Leo, you have a different opinion.
I have a fear, and
A
that's
fear.
No.
no differences. And maybe
Sorry?
Sorry, Nick. Go say.
Go ahead, Nick.
My fear is time delay differences.
And you
Because
can adjust for that in the iMac. You can time those things in OBS actually.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. So
Put them together in the first place, they don't get twisted.
they don't drift. They don't drift, but actually they will sort of, because actually let's start with, so first of all, you have a very valid problem, which is the drift, and how do you deal with that? So I mean, I've got exactly the same issue here. My camera is HDMI. My camera HDMI is coming to my A10. I have an A10 mini here. So I have the little baby version of what you have. And my audio is coming through this in here. And so the two drift apart. So you have to bring them into sync. But that's a similar problem that everybody has here, because audio is always much, much faster and video follows. But my point that I was going to say is, sooner or later, Nick's going to say, we want a monitor out in the somewhere else area of there where people can watch the service and hear the audio. So the sooner you bring the two together, the sooner you're able to send it to somewhere else in the building. Because if I remember rightly from my recollection, there's other parts of the building, you've got your beautiful older part, but there's newer parts as well, if I remember rightly. So you may want to rebroadcast out to there. And so that, because of the nice thing about the mixer that you've got, has got lots of outputs as well. So you can actually send completely dedicated versions of the program out to another element, another area of the building. And by bringing the audio in at that point that you're bringing in at the moment, you're able to include it in the mix. That would be my only reason to do it at that point.
That's already starting to happen. The Women's Alliance has set out to purchase a widescreen TV to put in Fellowship Hall, so that overflow from the sanctuary, because of limited numbers, the overflow can sit far apart in Fellowship Hall and watch the service.
Okay. However, you've got other things going on downstream of the ATEM switcher.
Well, you're going
to fix that?
Yeah, that's the new laptop that just went in today.
Yeah.
Put all the video stuff and everything into the ATEM box. Nothing happens downstream except streaming.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
well, that's good.
So your television studio is a really powerful device.
Yeah.
So it has, and if you look at it now we've gone into a little bit of the terminology, Nick. You'll now see. So if I mention this in the terminology and I talk about it on the media players, so it's got two media players. It's got a media pool still image capacity. So what that means is that, so where you've got Kim is now appearing as a little pitch, there's the image, so you can actually load in images, so you can put bugs. So a bug is something that appears on the top, normally over this side of the screen. Then you can also put in, it's got upstream and downstream keys. What does that mean? An upstream key and a downstream key means that you can actually, so Zoom uses something called a downstream key. That's how you make fake backgrounds. So I can't think of the right word. But that's done by the downstream key, because you find a color. Normally you find the color green and you replace it by something. So that's a downstream with a chroma key. Thank you very much. So you can do all of this in your ATEM. You can do all of these things. You can also do multi. Is there a super source in that? I can't remember. I think there's a super source in that model. And what super source is where you have two pictures. So you've got two cameras or three cameras. You actually can have them on the screen at the same time. So the nice way of doing that is, if you take your chancel and you've got two people into two different places, you can actually, if they were two hands, but they're really far apart, you can sort of make a version of it on there. So that's a couple of comments on there, but I'm sure you've got questions and things that are coming up and stacking up.
Definitely. I was actually going to say, we have a great question of Graham Carwell, who was just asking, how many people are on the full production crew and what are their roles? Like on your end.
Well, currently there's the AV technician, who is basically the artistic director of whatever is going to happen after the minister tells him what to do. And then there is a volunteer who, up until possibly this coming weekend, was taking care of shifting cameras and doing camera views, while the AV technician took care of video clips. As I said, those roles are going to reverse, and there won't be video clips occurring in OBS. There is another volunteer who is doing Zoom. And that person currently is out in the sanctuary. You saw pictures of that, I think, Marty. And but I think they're going to move into another room in the back of the chancel.
We're actually phasing that out.
Even better. I'd love that.
And so would our technician.
Oh, wow.
Well, you will have somebody who is watching and listening to Zoom as a confidence verification thing, right?
So what we're phasing out is that we have it set up where it goes to YouTube, and then our folks were so attached to Zoom that they couldn't imagine leaving Zoom. And so then the Zoom host gets the feed from YouTube and rebroadcasts it into the Zoom room for people to then participate in worship. And the only thing they got out of that was different from YouTube was breakout rooms for coffee hour. Because, YouTube Live has the ability to chat, and the video quality and the sound quality were much better on YouTube than they were on Zoom. And it took a whole extra person to host the Zoom meeting.
Right.
So we're phasing it out.
Okay. Zoom can come in handy when you have people that are not in the sanctuary who you want to be able to contribute to the service, to participate in the service. That can come in handy. Now that it's interesting that you can use Zoom as a front end and have people on a private Zoom call contributing to the service that you can then combine in the ATEM with local pictures. To do side-by-side, picture-in-picture, to do 2-ups or 3-ups, and which means showing that person at home plus a camera in the sanctuary, and then have that go out to Zoom where everybody's going to, out to YouTube where everybody's going to watch it. Sometimes having multiple calls like that can be very creative.
I'd love to experiment with that as we get more comfortable with just the basics.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's just an excellent idea moving toward the future. Privately, I've always thought that their love of Zoom during church service was because they've always wanted to be talking while the service is going on. And now they can through the chat room.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Now I'll have to give that up for a little while till we get creative.
Yeah. By the way that we do this show is we go to Zoom, and then we have, up until today, Zoom was sending the feed out to YouTube, right? And because we're on an HD Zoom account, everything is going out at 1080. But even when we were on the 720 account, YouTube, the pictures that we were picturing. No. Okay.
I'll. So what Marty was about to say, but we're on 1080 inside Zoom.
Now,
but Zoom is streaming out is only 720 at the best. But if you haven't done the tricks that we've talked about when you've been on the when we were on the show before, and we've talked to you about upping your zoom quality to 720, typically zoom is 480. So people will definitely notice the difference in what you're doing. And you may decide whichever way you want to do this or not. In OBS, on the right hand side, there is a thing where you start the stream. You've also got a thing that says start virtual camera, I think it's called. I can't remember. If you start the virtual camera, if you run Zoom on that same machine, Zoom will actually see the feed out of OBS. So you can actually run Zoom. You can actually be one camera in Zoom.
Yep. And it'll take care
That's
of
all
both
you
of
have
them.
to do. And it'll take all care of it, so you can run it all from the same machine.
Yep.
See, I thought we could do that, but our technician is Zoom illiterate. And so when I tried to be like, can we do this? And he was like,
you can, but
no.
no, but you're then running Zoom out of the room and YouTube out of the room. So you're sending two feeds out of the room, which means you're sending twice as much bandwidth. I can't remember where you got to on getting your bandwidth. If you've got enough bandwidth for that, you're all right with that.
Yeah,
so just be aware.
We have the bandwidth now.
Okay, so that's a way. That's a way if you want to do it. I 100% sympathize with this idea of, where do we get those guys? How do we move them over? Can we move them over? Do we want to move them over from Zoom to there? They like, I was having this discussion with Rabbi David on a similar program, and it was like, there's a lot that don't actually come. I know the clergy believe they come for the sermons and that. There's quite a lot that just come for the coffee hour. You didn't hear that. You didn't hear that, Kim. They're always there for you. That's all they're there for.
I was a congregant before I became a religious professional.
Yeah, so you can't believe that. It doesn't happen. But some do actually only come for that part of the service. And so it's, how do you make sure that they still come? And that's always a difficulty.
Coffee hour.
So you just put it in there. So you put it into the Zoom coffee hour, and you carry on that part of the service. That element of that time slot is going to stay, and that way they feel you're not abandoning them in that area.
Yeah. All right, Crystal, we have some more questions, right?
We do. The next one up is from Paul Gibnon of Long Beach. It says, do you have anyone in your online audience who is giving live feedback to the techs? So
our tech monitors the YouTube stream. And so, and people have been quite prompt about he has both the stream up and then the chat. He follows the chat while in YouTube. So he gets
while he's switching the service.
So he knew the minute there were problems with the audio last week.
So I think that's a large part of what that volunteer is going to be doing once we're not using OBS to put video clips in, so that Mo can worry about all the video and audio in one place. And then, what's become obvious is we really have to monitor what our outputs are. And so that we know before they do that there's a problem. And
do you have an internal, do you use something like WhatsApp or Signal in the tech team?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so a lot of places I know that they set up either WhatsApp group or a Signal group, so that they have there, and then you choose one or two tech-friendly congregants that are in there, so that you sort of get a polite way of finding out, even if it's like, you can say, is everybody hearing? Are we okay today? Or, without having to ask the whole world,
right?
And getting the opinion of all of them twice. So, just have a couple in there.
We should look at that. You all have come up with some really good ideas here. I thought we were almost done.
You'll be
Never.
done in 20
Never
years'
done.
time.
Yeah, it's just
never,
like
it's
naming.
never, that's it.
Yeah, it's just like naming a file final is pretty much the guaranteed way to make sure you need to edit it again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
back channel communications is a really useful thing. It's, private communications, and there are just a number of different ways that you can accomplish that, both in voice and in text. Things like Discord and things like
Even Facebook Messenger, as long as you're muting all of your notifications, so your phone's not going bing 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 the whole time.
yeah. You can even communicate with, the text can even communicate with people with the Reverend on the stage. She could have her
Yeah.
phone handy to do a text.
Mhm.
So I'm getting. Sorry, Martin.
If she has something that she needs to communicate, I'm going to change something, or there's something going on out here. We need some assistance, or did somebody not make it, or or I'm not seeing something that on my confidence monitor. I'm not seeing what I think I should be seeing. So communications with your text can sometimes be very useful.
There's a comment that we got on social media. Crystal, have you seen the comment?
Oh yeah,
Just to the thing.
Yeah, on the fort. Yeah, yep.
So somebody's watching this on a ship and is commenting that as the ship is pitching and rolling, the audio and the video is breaking up for them. So you get there's some things we can fix. There's some things we can fix. I'm not sure that one is on our list of things we can solve.
Yeah, sorry, Facebook person. We try to keep an eye on that, but
oh wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Sure. We have Keith Miller from Paint Branch, UC Maryland, who is wondering, I recall a discussion about what type of screen to get in the sanctuary and where to put it. What was done there?
Well, we have an 85-inch Sony really nice TV that we managed to get a good price on, but trying to get it up 8 feet in the air and it weighs 120 pounds has to be an interesting problem.
Oh.
So on the 9th of November, we will make our third try at getting it up. So this handyman and 2 henchmen are coming, and they will have a lift, sort of like one of these lifts that they use for sheetrock, and just
a scissor lift.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have to pay the people, and we have to pay the scissor thing, and up it'll go. And we're looking forward to it because Reverend Kim uses a lot of clips during her sermons, and we need that 85-inch screen for people in the sanctuary to see that.
Well, and we'll also need it for things like, virtual participation and for, like an off-site worship assistant or something like that.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing with it, I was going to ask you is, have you got it in your mind what you will connect that to? As in
aux output out of the ATEM.
Yeah. Yep. Great. So again, when we were talking about the ability to send things in different things out of the ATEM, so we're saying to another room, you can also do exactly the same with the TV, so that when you then move, so your PowerPoint display or whatever you do, you can actually dedicate that one thing goes just to that place. Right. So that you can control it. But also what I would say will be really useful, I think a lot of people who are in the room will like to see, is you were talking about seeing your organ player, that the people at home can see the organ player. You'll be amazed at how the people in the room suddenly seeing a view of something they haven't been able to see before it will draw them in to see stuff that they have never been able to see from where they sit in their pew. And something like that is one of those things that they like seeing, or close-ups from your other cameras that are in closer. What do you know? How Nick, the zoom on your cameras are they? What's on those PTZ cameras?
It'll
do you know what's that? Yeah. It goes to what? Sorry.
Up to 30x.
30x, yeah. 30x cameras can come really close into. They're really nice to be able to, if you've got silent moments in the service, and you're able to zoom in into something that they normally can't. They only see at a distance, and they can see that. It really adds to that.
A good idea.
The view.
That's a great idea. So along that line, we got a request this morning from the volunteer to change our camera perspective on the organist so that we could see his feet.
Feet? I guess with the pedals?
Yeah, pedals, right?
So
cool.
We didn't think of that. So now we will.
He did a video when we were fully virtual that was literally just him playing the organ with his feet. It was just a pedal piece. It was people really enjoyed it.
Neat.
The
Very
screen
cool.
is going to go up on the opposite side of the chancel from the organ, above what is a door to the AV room now.
When we were looking at your pictures, I remember we were trying to work out where it would go, and that sounds
Yep.
That's it. I hope the sheetrock up there sounds like it. Well, the TV is going to hold it. Yeah.
It's brick.
Okay, fine.
Here's a picture of that wall.
Yeah, exactly.
So Leo was mentioning different camera angles and being able to see things that congregants wouldn't normally see. One of the nice features of this room, if I have a picture of it handy here, is that beautiful mural on the back of the chancel wall. Here's a partial picture of it.
While you're doing that, there's a comment here from Keith Miller. Our people really like seeing the pianist's hands in the live stream when he's playing. So exactly the point.
Exactly. Yeah. They're remarkable artists doing the organ and the piano, and we should display it.
One of the biggest complaints I had from one place is, we'd like to see that. Could you do a closer zoom in on the congregants in the room so we know who's there today?
Oh, yeah. So what I was going to say is, if you could get a tight shot of this picture of this mural here, and do a real slow pan across it from one side, from left to right, just to get a little bit of motion in there, and so that it's not a static picture. That's something that you can use during any musical portion, during the offertory, for instance, or something. It doesn't have to be a long shot. You can mix it in with other things. Another kind of shot that people will find interesting is a reverse angle shot, where you might have a camera above the chancel, like right in your archway, that can, a Ptz camera, so that can swing around and get a picture of the mural, right? And it'll be closer, so you can have it, the aperture wider, the zoom wider, but then spin it around, and now you can see the congregants in the room.
Well, there's another reason to do that. We do a fair number of weddings and funerals and things like that. And you can imagine that you'd want to bring this camera down on a wedding couple. And Reverend Kim, this is a very slippery slope. We're talking about 2 more cameras already.
I know, I was thinking about cameras and I was like, we still have to buy more audio equipment.
Yeah, audio is something that we should talk about.
And a stream deck.
Well, stream
The
deck.
good news, the stream deck's cheap.
Yeah, the stream deck. I can see that on the horizon real soon.
Yeah.
Very, very.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And if nothing else, it'll help you get all those, once you get all those lovely new angles in, you can just hit them on one button and you're done.
I love it.
They're so great. Seriously.
How many camera inputs does your ATEM switcher have?
I
8?
think
8.
I think
No, that one's 16, I think, off
Yeah, I
the
was
top of my
gonna
head.
Television studio, yeah.
Television studio. No, it's 8. It's 8. It's
Yeah.
8 in, 8 out on the television studio.
because that's all they could get on this multi-view screen, I think.
Yeah. So you have room for a few more.
Just a few.
Okay. Reverend Kim.
Right.
Well,
so audio is going to be your audio.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Leo. Go ahead.
To just on the video bit on that, just very quickly, it's 8 sounds a lot, but when you actually think you've got 3 cameras already, we were talking about a 4th at the back. Then we're talking about a video playout device, and then something like your PowerPoint's coming in from you. You're up to 6 now.
Pedal
So
cam.
if you then, sorry.
Pedal cam for the
Yeah,
organ.
there you go, 7.
Yep,
So
yep.
so it does, before you know it, you're up to your 8. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
but then you start looking at versatility, and then you start saying, well, actually, rather than a fixed box camera, so you know where you've got, so a good example actually is the camera that the moment that you're using for the organ player. If you imagine that you put a PTZ somewhere in that area looking down, as Marty said, that could in theory then rotate back to look at the chancellor in the opposite direction, or could actually look at the there. So you could, it suddenly becomes more versatile. That's a way of doing it.
A PTZ is so much more versatile than a box camera. No doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the nice thing is also, when I find the best thing about PTZs is when the cleaner comes in and moves everything, you actually just reset all your positions. You just click them over a bit. That's it. We've got the position. Or you have in comes whoever is leading the service this week is, a foot taller or a foot shorter or whatever. You can just redo all your angles and without having to. And it's all just it's like setting up the microphones before a service.
To get a ladder, that's a good thing. Right.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah, as I recall, the organ, I don't have a good picture at the moment, but the organ is kind of set at an angle in the chancel. It's not like against the back wall, right?
Right.
And so I wonder if there might be a place to locate a PTZ camera that can tilt down to see the organist and then tilt up to see the pulpit.
I think that's it's along that arch that you get both, and you could see the congregation and the central aisle from the stage. And I wanted to put in cables so we could just instantly do that, but Modern Communications Inc., who did the install, said, oh, you need to learn more about this and then figure out where you want them. And I think they're right. We're learning a lot. And we probably guessed wrong. So
yeah, well, it is a learning process.
it is that.
For sure. Yep.
The audio part with speakers, the current location of the speakers, what we're hoping is that we can get some of these kind of column speakers and sit against the arch near the edge, and they just become a part of the architecture as opposed to a separate standing speaker like we're doing temporarily now. But I don't know how. We first have to figure out how to fund it, and then we start looking to see how we could do that. We can take our current speakers and actually wall mount them, because the mounts aren't very expensive, but that's off in the future somewhere.
Yeah, you have to be careful about that, because when you're using column speakers, or any speaker for that matter, you want to look at what we call the dispersion pattern of the loudspeaker. So, like, in the spec sheet, it'll say 60 by 90, for example. So that would be 90 degrees wide and 60 degrees high, and it, in an arc. So when it sends out sound, it starts at a point and then goes out in that angle.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to be sure that when you permanently mount the speakers, that particularly the vertical angle is going to the people at the front row as well as the people in the back row are going to be within that projection angle of sound.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they won't hear it really well.
You want to see, they need to see the direct path.
Right.
To them instead of bounced off.
Yeah, and the other problem that you have at the moment is you need to make sure that you do the tests when you've got the right number of people or the capacity that you're hoping to get, and obviously that's somewhat difficult with the current situation, because otherwise there's, as Marty, the sound guys will tell you, you've set up a room and then it sounds brilliant with 3 people in it, but these things made out of carbon that are around about 6 foot tall that stand in the way block a lot of sound.
Yeah, they're wearing winter jackets, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. Right.
Exactly.
The other thing is that you have a rather deep room, right?
I'm just going to bring in Jay on this. Sorry. Go on,
good.
Marty.
Thanks.
Jay.
So just a couple of things you're probably going to want to just look out for. One is going to be whether you use a speaker like you're using now, where you go to a line source, a column. You're going to want to make sure that the aiming, yes, you want to make sure you hit people, but you also want to make sure that you don't create a reflection from a back wall that comes back, because that reflection can be very distracting. So that's going to be, part of the guiding how you choose a loudspeaker and how the loudspeaker is mounted, where the loudspeaker is mounted. It sounds like you're because you're using a head-worn microphone. Is that the primary microphone that's heard in the sanctuary, as opposed to people working at a distance from other microphones?
Well, there's a microphone on the lectern,
which is pretty far back from the loudspeakers.
yes.
Right. So
Well,
you don't have enough.
Yeah, it's a couple of feet behind it in terms of drawing lines across the sanctuary. So it's behind it.
Gotcha.
5-6 feet.
Mhm.
So the speakers aren't sending sound directly into the microphones.
Right. So you're able to get the audio loud enough to get all the way to the last row.
Oh,
Of the
yes.
sanctuary. You have clarity all the way to the back row of the sanctuary. So
Well, nobody in there. Right.
yeah, got it. But if you were to walk around and listen, you still have you're delivering clarity, intelligible, good sounding speech pretty much everywhere in the sanctuary now.
Right.
Excellent.
We've run those experiments,
Mhm.
but not with a large congregation in there. But Modern Communications Inc. Has a company that they work with.
Mm-hmm.
They've been talking about smart column speakers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're individually steered, so you can point one at the back row and you can point one at the front row, and but it would be a major fundraising effort to.
I would just simply recommend you may not need an active steerable column loudspeaker. You could conceivably do very well with a passive steerable column loudspeaker, which is many thousands of dollars more economical.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a complicated, floor plan trying to cover a balcony as well, then a simpler approach may give you an outstanding result, and you don't have to break the bank buying
Well,
technology you don't necessarily need.
It doesn't have to be modified dynamically. Once they're set well, then
Once they're set, you don't need to change anything, because you're always going to have an audience or a congregation following a seating plan, right?
yeah, pretty much.
There you go.
Good idea.
One other thing you want to be conscious of is, and this is particularly affected by the mounting height of the loudspeaker, is that you know that when you close to a microphone, it's really, well, it's not going to happen on mine because I have it adjusted. But then you move away from
it'll
a
happen on mine if
lower,
because
right?
I haven't got a compressor on, so it should happen to mine. And if it won't, then I'll go away from it.
Yeah.
That
Right.
happens.
So the same thing happens with loudspeakers. The closer you are, the louder it is. And when you if you're 2 feet away from a loudspeaker and you hear it at a certain volume, and then you go 4 feet away from the loudspeaker, you're hearing it at half the volume. And then when you go 4 feet further, you're hearing it at, again, half the volume. So you want to be concerned that the people in the front of the room aren't being blasted out so that the people at the back of the room can just be hearing it.
Well, and that's part of the good idea that's in the column speaker with them steered. So
Right.
levels
That's
are different
correct.
depending on how far back they're pointed. Yeah, I can't wait to get to that point because and the time these companies are willing to come in and put one in for several weeks, and we can experiment with them.
That's cool.
Prepare them. So when we've got a congregation, that would be the time to do it.
Right.
I would. You talked about something earlier, though, Nick, which is about the mixer itself. My preference would be to make sure that the mixer is you look at that before you actually change the it's get that side sorted, because one of the things with a digital mixer is that you're able to also create a delayed version of the audio. Well, you can do this in an analog mixer as well. So if you end up having to do, I think the correct term, Jay, is fill, so that you've got so when you've got further set of speakers further back, if they need that way.
Right. So that's correct. So if you're going to need to supplement with additional speakers in the rear of the room, if that's the case, or an adjacent room where you can hear the sanctuary live acoustically, you're going to want a signal delay on the speakers that are separated from the main speakers so that you can time them. It's something. It's very easy to do with test equipment, but there are other fairly good ways to get yourself close enough for it to work out, and the second set of speakers not be perceived as a discrete sound source. What you're looking to do is essentially trick your ear so that the source of sound is perceptually where the acoustic source is, and that would be at the lectern,
Front of the room. And they have the two of those Bose speakers from their existing sound system. Do you think they could potentially be used as delays, as fills in the back of the room?
Well, we'd have to pull them down, and the cost of pulling them down is higher than buying 2 new speakers. This is 28 feet up into the rafters.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Heavy.
And Nick, you've got a scissor lift coming in. You've got a scissor lift coming in to do your TV screen.
Yeah, but it will only go to about 15 feet.
It depends. But most of them actually, if you've got a mobile platform one, it depends which one they are. See, it may be, I don't want to spend your money, Nick. It may be, just find out if it's going to be super more expensive to get one that will go to
And take them down. There's
get them down at the same time.
There's easily $1,500 worth of speakers up in those rafters.
Well, if it's going to cost you an extra $50 to get a scissor lift that goes another few feet, or stick a ladder on top of the scissor lift. I didn't say that.
OSHA says no.
I did say that.
when the lighting specialist came in with his 22-foot ladder to just adjust the spotlights on the stage, I said, well, how about you go get those speakers? And he couldn't stop laughing. 80 pounds in my arms on that 22-foot ladder and come down. Well, we'll come down. It just won't be the event you hoped for. Yeah.
You may have another service to run that day.
I'll take on the Disney idea.
Well, that's dark.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be doing that.
This has been really nice. Thank you so much for doing this and subjecting yourself to our probing questions. And if anybody has any closing thoughts, we really wish you folks well. And yeah, it's very such a good feeling for us to be part of your journey and to see that you are really putting an effort and a dedication into your live streaming. Certainly seems like Reverend Kim, you have embraced the potential and you understand that your congregation must be behind you in this too. And that's really nice to see. And having somebody like Nick on your team is extremely valuable. He's like gold.
We could not have done it without Nick, literally.
So the one thing I was going to ask you related to it is, do you have remote access of the computer and everything that's running it and the ATEM? Can you remote get to that, Nick?
Yeah, using TeamViewer.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
The reason I ask is when you do get that Stream Deck and you need something, if you've got the remote thing, then people like me can come in and just show you the things remotely.
Yeah, and if you're permanently,
or it's much cheaper if you just send me the airline tickets, and then I can do it that way.
I was going to say, you are permanently, irrevocably invited.
No, it's fine. It's
that
fine,
would be awesome.
Yeah, that's it. But it's amazing. So as Marty will tell you, one of the things that as we're part of also is this office hours, which now has the 24 hours after hours. And in after hours, there is a lot of times that people will just go in. Someone said, I'm just really stuck on how to make this bit do that. And it's open 24 hours a day. So for you to sort of, if needed, just come in. Because that's how this equipment is all. That's the really nice thing about most of this equipment. You can remotely control it from the PC can control the ATEM or control the switcher, those sort of bits.
Oh, yeah. Well, while we're patting each other on the back, really, you all have provided enormous value to us by asking questions and providing ideas. And I'm very grateful for those. And the number of videos that you have available that we could go back and look to see, well, we got this audio problem. What do those guys say about it? And that's of real value. I appreciate it a lot.
We appreciate that as well. It's a pleasure to be doing this, and it's real support. It's it's community for us and community for you, and we're really enjoying this. Thank you so much. Well, on that note, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank our guests and our panelists today for a really wonderful conversation. Hope you enjoyed our time together and found it informative, enlightening, enriching, energizing, and motivating most of all. And I want to thank the DVE store for their generous support, enabling us to bring this to you in 1080 on Zoom, and to the Office Hours crew for creating the Mukana system that we use for Q&A. And it's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So watch the Discord for agendas for upcoming shows, where you can find recordings of this and other past shows to review, announcements about upcoming events. And, as we've seen today, this is new ground that we're all exploring, potentially possibly for the first time, with very few models of similar sized houses of worship having to do live streaming, and we talking about, the equivalent of a television studio, production studio in our little churches. It's like mind blowing. So, but, make it your own because there's no other model to follow. So thank you very much. And we will move into the post show.
Thank you all.